Good day, everyone. Well, I'm going to settle in here and relax because this might be a long one. A video that I should entitle, I guess, Why Are We Pissed Off? Why is everybody pissed off? I sat down with a friend earlier, went over and visited with him. We hung out for a bit. Spent a few hours talking about the ups and downs of life. Quite a bit about politics, the candidates that are running, particular issues, conspiracies, false flags, you name it, just about everything. And it really helps to discuss things with people one-on-one, especially to see the differences in opinion. Him and I don't share all the same views, but we respect each other enough to discuss what our views are. I think overall we generally share the same ideals, but different methods of getting there. We understand the respect involved, the mutual respect involved in understanding why people think the way they do and where they're coming from. You know, I'll tell you, I've had some interesting beliefs in my life, thoughts about the way things are that were changed by evidence that weighed against it. And I felt what it feels like to have your ideals pulled at and have to realize and give up on it. Let that snap back and just, okay, let go. Just let go. And I've seen people defend things that they think are true to the end, but the question being what makes us angry, it's the confusion. It's the confusion of being human. I think that's one of the most obvious things. Being human is a confusing endeavor. We don't know why we're here. We don't know where we're from. We forget that. It's so easy to fall into line with what others are saying or thinking. Whether it be believing that, whether it be Christianity or atheism, it doesn't matter. You attach to a belief system and it makes it easier to live. And even a lack of a belief system can be a belief system, an easier way to live. In other words, living in absolutes. And if you live in absolutes, it's easier to get angry when somebody calls into question what you might think to be true. So if you believe something is 100% true, then if somebody questions that, you're going to have an issue. Let me give you an example. If somebody is pro-life, then you're going to run into people who are pro-choice, and both sides are going to be in conflict. So living as a human means that you'll have opinions. Those opinions will come into conflict with what other people believe and say. And that's just the way it is. Which means that you will have discussions which may turn into arguments, and the end result of that argument is hopefully that both people walk away with an understanding of how the other person thinks. Both people must gain from an argument or a debate, or else you're not paying attention. Even if all you're learning is that the other person really doesn't have any evidence in what you already said, or even if you're proving to yourself that what you said was right, you're learning from that. And that's just the thing. Even if you have any experience in life, they say if you don't take away something positive from it and understanding from it, then you're just not paying attention. So there are many lessons to learn about ourselves through other people and having discussions. So the question being, back to why are people angry? People are angry because people don't make it easy for people to live the life they want to, in many regards. Let's say some folks are angry because their government hasn't taken care of them properly. For example, the issue in Flint, Michigan with the water crisis, or places where governors or legislators have made bad decisions that have harmed the people. Or local citizens themselves have voted for bills maybe that were really bad for the people. So there's the legitimate anger, okay? Now, then there's the anger, which I'm trying to separate since there's so many different things to be angry at, I'm saying that there's a legitimate direct anger about the way that things are, things that can be changed. Angry because people have been irresponsible. Then there's general anger, which is by saying, I'm angry because I'm broke, or I'm angry because I have bad health, and therefore I'm going to blame the economy for me being broke, or blame the healthcare system for why I am the way I am, or why I'm ill, or not being able to get the health care that I hoped for, or whatnot. Now, I'm not going to get political on this and even talk about healthcare, so I'll stay away from that issue. I'm just trying to make the point of why people are mad, because generally there aren't very many things that people have issues with in life. But the two that I just mentioned, which are health and economy, health and income, are the two most prominent ones in people's lives. So, not having the means to do what a person chooses to do, it can be a source of anger. In other words, sometimes looking at rich people and saying, why can't I do that, can be a source for anger. Now that's what I call illegitimate anger, or misplaced anger, misdirected hostility. I don't blame rich people for being rich. If a person wants to be rich, then so be it. Because as I'm a free human to do what I wish, they're free humans to do what they wish too. And if they so choose to be rich, well, there's not a lot I can say against that. Even if they get their money off of the hard work of others, the positive spin that I see is that by having people who take advantage of others, say the few who really do abuse other people and maybe steal from them through financial means, white-collar crimes, people tend to think that that's legitimate, and I don't. I think it's horrible, but I also see that it keeps people aware, keeps people on their toes. Just like having a thief come through town and take all your wares from the city market, people are going to be more cautious and pay more attention. And it sucks it has to be that way, but it does. It's always been that way. I mean, there's not going to be a time where people aren't going to have problems with thieves and with money, and especially not with government. Government is the big one. Big one. And this is something that is near and dear to me because it was for about a decade I blamed the government for everything, But when I started trying to really ask myself, who is the government, I started to have to break it down into categories and groups, senators, congressmen, president, all these various groups and cabinets, and then to separate that completely from state government, local government, city workers, my friend who works for the city, Just because a person works for the government doesn't mean that they're obviously corrupt, so you have to draw a line somewhere and see where the problem is. Although I have a friend who does work for the city, and he says people constantly bombard him with their complaints, saying how the city's so corrupt, the state's corrupt, and he has to hear it. And I guess that's a really good example of misplaced hostility, is blaming the messenger. You know what I mean? Blaming the worker for the problem. I remember talking with my brother one time, and he said that he, whenever he goes through the toll booth up by his house, he just kind of throws the money at him and won't even look at him. And I said, that's pretty fucked up, in my opinion. I mean, that's really rude. People are just working the toll booth. And he said, well, they shouldn't be charging a toll. And he gave me the reason for why the toll should not be there. And I said, well, I can agree with that, but the person who's working the toll booth is merely trying to make a living for their family. It's not their fault. And that's a really direct version of how we blame the worker for the company. And maybe there's a good side to that too, that people don't want to work for a company that, where, if people are constantly protesting and saying, oh, it's disgusting you do that. But as long as there's jobs to be filled, somebody will fill them, so, that's not going to change anything. So I'm trying to kind of go down a list of things that make people angry, and I think that, not having money and having bad health are the two biggest issues, or having family that's treated poorly, such as veterans, the Veterans Affairs, and how they're just treated like crap when they get back. And that's just one thing. I mean, I could go on down a list of a million things that make people angry. But I guess the root I'm trying to get to is, can we ever solve the anger? Can we ever get past it? Can people, or should we get past it? Or is the anger part of who we are? Does it resolve itself? You know, I've had people ask me, you know, through the years, you know, they say, you seem to be argumentative, and, you know, you must like to argue. And I thought about it a lot. And I've gone through periods where I'll sit and listen and make it a point not to argue, or to try really be careful what I say, to make sure that I don't stumble on my words. I've even considered taking a vow of silence sometime in my life, and I probably will. I'm thinking for at least a year. It sounds crazy, but it's something I really want to do, because from all the texts I've read, it gives you some insight and understanding and into who you are. But most of all, it allows you to listen and learn how to pause before you speak. Because saying things, blurting things out, can cost us by having people become offended or not take it right. But I tend to do it because I just speak. I've made almost 3,000 videos on this channel now. I looked the other day, I couldn't believe it. And they're all just me rambling and talking like this mostly, and no editing, no pulling things out or adding this in. It's just, this is how I feel at the moment, so I'm bound to stumble on my words. So I'm bound to get into some arguments. Yet sometimes I get into arguments when I'm not stumbling on my words, such as the political videos, like one I made the other day, where I knew I would get a bunch of negative feedback, and people ask, why do you open yourself up to that type of argument and criticism? And I say, because it's not about me, it's about opening up the issue of politics in the country I live in, you know? To say, here I am, hearing all these people scream their opinions, and I have to put mine out there too. Why? In part arrogance, maybe, because as a human we're all arrogant if we think that our voice matters. Yet at the same time, part because I'm human and I feel it's my obligation, because of the same reason. Because if we don't speak out, we don't have our voice heard. I mean, a person could say voting is arrogant, but every vote is counted. And I believe that YouTube, Facebook, the entirety of the internet is the same way. That each video, each comment, each idea is somewhat like a vote. And we're voting for how humanity is going to behave. Excuse me. Behave. Burp. We're voting for how humanity is going to act. And that is it's a very interesting thing for me to contemplate. I mean, I feel like when the internet, you know, in the late 90s, it was a completely different story than it is today. And we've come a long way, and we're really starting to grow and see what society wants. So, I guess, yeah. I guess that's it. I better go now. I hear my kids out there, so they must be working their way out here. Probably going to come running in here screaming. So I wish you all the best, and have a great day. See what makes you angry. Oh, no, I can't go yet, because I have to finish this point I wanted to make about, which was really the main point, I guess. That arguments are okay. The debating is okay. That when people say, why do you want to argue? I say, because it resolves issues, because it gets points across, because we can learn from each other. Because I learn from other people. It may seem like I'm just trying to prove myself right, but that's not how I feel inside. I'm honestly waiting inside, like let's say if I'm arguing with Trump supporters, I'm not just trying to prove my point or say Bernie's better or support any particular candidate. I'm saying this is why I don't like the man. If you disagree, please tell me why you do like him, because then I could say, okay, maybe there's something I'm missing. I mean, so far I haven't gained any insight because people aren't very good at explaining themselves, and maybe I'm not either. You know, maybe we all have a little bit of issue getting our point across. Argument is okay. Aristotle talked a lot about other arguments. Ego is also okay, and a slight bit of arrogance, just as long as it's not misplaced and you know what you're talking about on the subject. And even if you don't, if you really feel confident in something and you really want to get something across, it's better to be a little bit arrogant than to be overly ignorant or to completely shut down and just walk away from something if you feel like it's important. If something's really important, And I think that certain things like politics are important, and religion is important to talk about too, because I can see the harm that it does in some places. So we all pick and choose what we decide is important to get angry about, as well as what's important to discuss. And so, I would just like, I hope I don't offend too many people with the things that I say, but you got to know it comes from the right place in my heart. I don't want to see anybody angry. I never like to see anybody upset or pissed off about anything, and I sometimes I may push people's buttons a little bit, but I honestly don't mean to. And so I just try to be the best person I can, and I don't know, voice my opinions the best I can. I'm getting totally distracted because of all the chaos going on out there, so I better go now, and I'll come back and make another video as I plan.